for the WTIM Morning Show. Thank you so much to our live stream sponsors, People's Bank and Trust and Landmark of Taylorville. Now I'm sitting down with Valerie Belusco. She's the Community and Economic Development Educator with the University of Illinois Extension Office. How are you doing today, Valerie?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm very excited to be talking today because you had a very interesting conversation with a couple of Taylorville locals the other day. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So, as a new role and getting to learn, the best things I can do is just reach out or have people reach out to me to really get to learn the community and the needs and what's going on and a little bit of the history and a little bit of, the planning for the future. And I met with two amazing people, Megan and Dick Adams, and they are with the Christian County Economic Development Corporation. And both of them, first and foremost, are a wealth of knowledge. They know the community so well. They understand the needs. They understand the hurdles. They understand all of the wonderful assets the community has to offer. So getting to hear their perspective and learning from them was such a blessing for me because it was a chance for me to answer or ask a lot of questions and get a lot of answers really quick.
Well, that sounds great, and that's exactly what you want to be able to do as a community and economic development educator. What are some of the things you guys talked about?
Oh my goodness. Well, Amy and I actually attended a workshop in Effingham 2 weeks ago, and it was so odd. We were going around the room introducing ourselves, and I'm a little hard of hearing. And so I turned to the person next to me and I said, "Did that woman just say her name was Amy Hagan?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I have a meeting coming up in like a week and a half with her." And so Amy and I were just already kind of on this same wavelength about, well, what does my community need? What programs are out there? How can I get to know the state and the federal programs and what we need to be doing, what we need to have all lined up so that if programs line up with our needs, we can be ready. And so it was really nice that we both, took the time to go to Effingham and listen to all of these amazing people talk and kind of give us the lowdown on what's coming and what we need to expect and how to prepare for that. So that was my first brief time meeting her. And so we talked a little bit more about that. Dick and I talked about how economic development has changed a lot. And I mean, a lot in the last 50 years, but even so in the last 10 and 15 years, it has changed so much. So the way we go about in rural areas, kind of tackling the idea of being in jobs and creating jobs is much different than we used to. Some places, like your area, still has the resources to be able to capitalize on industrial parks. And so that is kind of an old school philosophy that is still working really, really well for your community. And with your new industrial park, it's a wonderful opportunity you have. I know in Montgomery County, Litchfield also has a new industrial park, and they're going to capitalize on that. But not all of our small communities can capitalize on that. So we talked about entrepreneurship and small business and how to support those efforts and how to continue to grow. And then also thinking about the older generations retiring and making sure that there's kind of that plan for the future, because when people retire, we don't want their small businesses to close and go away. We want to be able to have a plan so that somebody buys them and continues them, because obviously those are needed in the community. And so Dick was also just an amazing person to talk to and really knows the ins and outs of his community and the communities around him.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. And what a cool initiative that we're getting started here with the industrial park. And you mentioned not every community is going to be able to take advantage of that. But do you think like an industrial park like that really is what can like define a community, is what can kind of make them a economic player?
So many thoughts on this. As far as defining a community, no. personally, I think the people define the community, the type of philanthropy you have in the community, the type and willingness of like really coming together with community spirit to tackle projects and work together and celebrate together. I think that kind of defines your community. But as far as from an economic perspective of what's working and what can help shape and mold and grow a tax base and build the community, 100%. I think Taylorville is right in that sweet spot to be able to capitalize on that. Amy and I talked after Dick left, and I said, you know what, the one challenge we have in this area, and I'm talking regionally, not just Taylorville or Christian County, but definitely regionally, is the lack of housing. Because what I hear all the time from a state level is how amazing our communities are. We have amazing school systems. We have amazing hospitals. We have low crime. We have great just community willingness and support. But our fault is lack of affordable housing. And so when you really want to tackle economic development, in my personal opinion, from what I'm hearing across the state and regionally, one of the things that you also have to consider is making sure that you have a housing plan that you're constantly thinking about, so that you're thinking about ways to get people to move here and build here. And I think having an industrial park is going to attract a lot of jobs. And I hope that attracts a lot of people who want to come live here, not just commute, although there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a commuter myself. But, I think it opens up a lot of opportunities. So Amy and I talked, and we said, working with your local realtors and your local bankers, they know it all. They know who's doing what, who might have land, who might have something for sale. And so working with them in conjunction with helping to market an industrial park can really be key to bring those two pieces together and help push a project forward with great success.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We talk a lot about our businesses and restaurants here in Taylorville, and we want it to be, maybe a destination point, but why can't it be a living point for people? And we really are running into some issues with housing, and you don't think about that as much. You want to see flourishing businesses, but you need places where people can live. That's really interesting.
You do, and we talked about it from a generational aspect, and I like to teach community groups and businesses all about different generations and how they work together and their different needs and how do I say this? What's important to them, their value systems. And so right now is a very odd time in the world where we have 5 generations of individuals working together, and their needs are all very different. And when you look at that from a job perspective and from a housing perspective, it's amazing at how much it can vary. So Amy and I talked a lot about that too, about, jobs that have flexibility for the younger generations, where the older generations really like consistency and a schedule, and how you can make that work through flexibility and just understanding that. And that's always something that U of I Extension can come in and help kind of help businesses and business owners understand that, but also maybe flesh out some ideas to help make a plan to move forward in that kind of new workspace and flexible schedule. But then we also talked about housing and how that differs. I'm that 40 something-ish. I quit counting at 40. I'm that person, and my dream. When I grew up, we had 1 bathroom and 3 bedrooms, and we had a basement. It was just a very typical home in the 80s. And man, when I grew up, all I wanted was to have 2 bathrooms, right? Give me 2 bathrooms. And so, that was kind of my thing. And it kind of grew. Like I wanted more and more and more, right? That's my generation. And it's weird because these younger, and it's not weird, I shouldn't say that. the younger generations are more minimalist. Um, they they want to be able to have freedom to come and go. They don't want to have to take care of a lot. They don't want to necessarily fix a lot. Although a lot of them do love the two bathrooms, they don't necessarily want to have a lot of upkeep because experiencing the world and being out in the world is so important to them. Where I am definitely a homebody and don't mind fixing things and love home projects. So the kind of housing that we're looking for is very different between my generation and their generation. And so just understanding that and the needs can be incredibly important when doing community planning and really thinking about the future.
Yeah, gosh, I can't imagine navigating that conversation. You said 5 different generations can be working together in one workplace, and yes, I feel like I've seen that. And gosh, the conversations surrounding housing, it's just so nuanced, and what do people want? And you guys are really at the forefront of it here. You guys are going to find the answers for us. But we're going to take our first short little break here. I'm sitting down with Valerie Belusco. She's with the University of Illinois Extension. She's the Community and Economic Development Educator. It's been quite an eye-opening conversation so far. We'll be right back here on the WTIM Morning Show.
Your information station, WTIM. Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to the WTIM Morning Show. My name is Tim Zalabak, and you are listening to the WTIM Information Station. Thank you so much to our live stream sponsors, People's Bank and Trust and Landmark of Taylorville. I've been sitting down with Valerie Belusco. She's a community and economic development educator with the U of I Extension Office. We've talked a whole lot about the community development going on around Taylorville. And Miss Belusco had a great conversation with Amy Hagan. She's a big contributor to the food pantry. She's a coordinator over there. And now we might do something different here. Valerie, do we still got you?
Oh, you do?
Beautiful. We're going to do something a little bit different here. Me, as a pretty new community member here in Taylorville, moved here just about a month ago. Miss Belusco's got a couple of questions for me about the community. What are those about?
Oh, I love flipping roles and doing that. So yeah, because you're so new. So first of all, this idea, I'm kind of stealing it from Amy, who kind of stole it from the mayor, who kind of learned about it from Highland. So I just give credit where credit is due. Amy was talking and she said, one of the things that kind of came up lately, some of the questions that Highland had asked was, what is your biggest asset in your community? What is the best part of your community? And then also, what do you think your community needs to work on? And so I was thinking, since you're really rather new to the community and just getting to know people from that really green initial perspective, what do you feel is the biggest asset there in Taylorville and Christian County?
Totally. I think the geography of Taylorville is really perfect in terms of the square and the close-knit community. And you see the beautiful high school. You see the nice park. I think it has the structure for a perfect community. And yeah, that's my answer there.
I love it, and I would agree with that as well. You definitely have big assets in the way in what is available to the community, and the beautiful school and the wonderful hospital. I'm just, I know every community wishes they could have that, and you're definitely lucky enough to have that. And I'm glad that as a newcomer, that was something that you recognized right away.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, now you might not have a perspective on this. And if you don't, that's okay, but you might have heard a few things, being that you're on the radio and everybody talks to you.
Mhm.
But have you heard, or do you have an idea of something that your community really needs to work on and focus on?
Working on and focusing on, it was a bit off-putting to me at first, seeing the beautiful square and knowing nothing about future plans, and seeing businesses that weren't open. I saw windows with nothing inside, and that made me a bit sad. I knew at one point the square was a bustling place where people were all over the place. And then I kind of realized that there wasn't really too much for the 18 to 24-year-old demographic here. It was a bit dead in that term. I found time at the disc golf course over there at Manners Park. That's for me. But in terms of nightlife and things like that for the 18 to 24-year-old demographic, that's where I kind of found things.
You are definitely at that age. I remember when I was at that age.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so important to those that are kind of, they're past that 18-year-old, they're coming into adulthood, and they're not quite they're not old yet. Right?
I get it. Yeah.
So it's very important because socialization is such a big aspect. Many times you don't have kids or a family yet at that age, so you're not socializing with other parents at daycares and pre-Ks and school events. And so yeah, you have to, it's a weird thing. You're out of school, so you're not socializing that way. And so it's this weird thing where you want to socialize so bad and you want to get to know your community, but everything's kind of limited when you get into a small town.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? There are some really creative ways to bring that age group together. I'm gonna highlight Hillsborough here. They just did the funnest thing. It was an 80s themed day where you did putt-putt golf through different bars, restaurants, and businesses in the community. It happened on a weekend, and your goal was to do your little putt-putt through all of them and get a little something for all of them and learn about things, and have like a little celebration and party afterwards.
Wow.
And it was so fun because it was where you could bring your team together And so you could create a team of people that you knew and that you were comfortable with, right? Because we
Right.
always want to start with something that's comfortable for us.
Hey, Valerie, I'm so sorry. That sounds so great. We are out of time. I'm so sorry, Valerie.
Okay.
We have to hit this, but I want to talk to you for the rest of the day. You're listening to the WTIM Morning Show. Thank you so much to Valerie Belusco.
Your information station, WTIM.
It just goes by so fast, and we were getting to the point where we really were about to hit on something there. So I'm sorry about that. Oh,